We were talking about secret management scale and almost your approach to security. What was your approach in thinking there and why go down that path?
I work for a British telco. The company itself is 180 years old, and 180 years also means that it's 100 years of legacy to some degree. Previously, we had this thinking about there is a perimeter, a moat, and a castle. And when you're in the castle, you're all good. So this implicit trust is an issue.
But in a 180-year-old world of technology, I would imagine it's quite a challenging task to even start.
It's very scary because you suddenly see tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe credentials in your estate. So the thinking here is really take all of this away. From the beginning, it reduces their cognitive load. My objective and the company's objective is really to get to this intrinsic motivation where everybody wants to do the right thing automatically.
If you work in a telecom company with over 180 years of history, then there's a lot of complexity you carry in the organization in terms of the kind of compute you have, the kind of environments you'll have. You probably even also have actual devices that are physical towers that you care about. In this fascinating conversation with Christian Schwarz from BT or British Telecom, he shared the experience he had deploying a standardized secret management across his entire organization, and also share why his approach to having no passwords for developers to log in into a server was crucial for his vision of what security should look like while we are working on enabling developers. The interview with Christian was recorded at HashiDays London 2025, and it's a great conversation for anyone who's starting to build that standard secret management, which may be cloud agnostic across their entire complex ecosystem of historical as well as modern infrastructure. Overall, I enjoyed this conversation. If you know someone who is going through this process and perhaps is already in a telecom themselves or in a really large organization, which is complexity and history, I would definitely check out this episode and share this episode with someone who you know is going through a similar journey or is interested in this topic. As always, if you have been listening to Cloud Security Podcast for some time and have been really enjoying the episodes, I would really appreciate if you can take a moment to hit the subscribe button if you are watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, or hit subscribe or follow button if you are listening to this on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify. I look forward to hearing your feedback on what you think of the episode with Christian. For now, let's get into the episode. Hello, welcome to another episode of Cloud Security Podcast. We had HashiDays London, and I've got Christian with me. Hey man, thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
For people who probably, actually maybe a good place to start, could you give a bit of background about yourself and where
Your company?
and the company you work for?
Yes, yeah. So I work for a British telco called British Telecom,
Yeah.
short BT Group. And so in there, I look after security engineering in an area that's called network services, which essentially provides our private cloud estate, but also fixed and mobile connectivity.
Yeah.
And as part of BT, we operate quite a bit of what is called critical national infrastructure as well.
Yeah.
For example, the 999 platform, which is the UK equivalent of the 911 call, most people know in the US and beyond. So we operate this. We have also the emergency service platform network. We have air control towers, stuff like this. And there's quite a bit of underpinning of key infrastructure within the UK.
Quite a bit of history as well.
Exactly, yeah. And then the company itself is 180 years old.
Yeah.
And this means there is a lot of claims to fame around having invented this and that because innovation happens. Obviously, and we have a really nice research campus in Ipswich on the in Eastern Anglia. But 180 years also means that it's 100 years of legacy to some degree. And this obviously impacts the work I do from a security engineering point of view. And this also means that we have a long history of preferred suppliers and ways of operating. And this has rapidly been evolving, as has the threat landscape.
Fair. And I think for the American counterparts, like the AT&T, and that's what BT is for the UK. Is it just UK or is it in Europe as well?
A couple of years back, we were still a really international business. We had a big center in Malaysia as well. And we had ambitions there was BT International at the time already, which is a little bit of a fun story in the sense that we created a new entity called BT International last week. That we separate now out from the more UK-centric main part of BT. So we want to really focus ourselves now on UK. But there are some interesting tidbits. First of all, UK is an island. But this also means that we are still have connections to Europe and other countries. And Northern Ireland largely operates under EU laws as well. Many of the products and services that we need to provide need to follow and comply with EU regulation as well. So often people forget because there's this famous Brexit bonus. But actually the complexity shows that in Ireland, in Northern Ireland in particular, for our products like home hubs and stuff like this, we absolutely need to abide by EU rules as well.
Interesting. And maybe to talk about some of the security, other security things as well. We were talking about secret management scale and almost your approach to security. I think the two common themes we wanted to focus on is secret management as well as not having enough secrets with people who want to access services. What was your approach and thinking there, and why go down that path?
Yeah, let me step a little bit into the threat landscape first. And there has been a big evolution. And so previously we had this thinking about there is a perimeter, a moat, and a castle. And when you're in the castle, you're all good. If you're outside of the castle, it's very problematic.
Yeah.
The Wild West, if you want. This evolved over time. So there is no longer this firewall that you can set up and that protects everything inside, and where you can just trust anybody and any service and stuff like this. So this implicit trust is an issue, and it's no longer today really a principle that you can follow.
Yeah.
Hasn't been for a long time, but for the telcos, they ignored this for a while. Let's put it like this. To come to your point a bit more about the secrets management, this also means that if you look at how threat actors are actually compromising and then going from there, they go about high-value targets. So there are teams that go up to ransomware. So they try to encrypt your estate and then extort money from you, essentially.
Yeah.
But most of the others, they try to compromise some of your platforms and from there go further. And the game is essentially to find either a very privileged account, take this over, or even go after the holy grail of password storage, credential management, or stuff like this, a central piece. So if you use something like Active Directory, you would have an Active Directory storage, which has encrypted passkeys and usernames and all of that stuff. So often attackers will go after this.
Yeah.
So what you really want to do is reduce the amount of credentials that are there in the first place, and also make it much easier for teams to live in a world that doesn't have friction. And anytime you need to enter a password or think about a passphrase or generate one or something like this, it introduces friction. It introduces friction when you create something, a new service.
Yeah.
And it introduces friction when you operate the service.
Yeah.
So the thinking here is take all of this away. From the beginning, make sure that you've got design patterns and templates that actually reduce the amount of credentials that you have in the first place.
Yeah.
And put this somewhere else, potentially decentralized, but very securely stored.
Interesting. And to your point about it reduces the risk exposure as well, based on new threat landscape you called out.
Yeah.
But in a 180-year-old world of technology, I would imagine it's quite a challenging task to even start.
It is.
So what were some of the challenges you came across? And for people who are maybe thinking about doing this in their part of the world, what were some of the things you kind of learned that people can take as, hey, these are some of the challenges you face as you go through this in an already established company?
Yeah. So the telco world is maybe a bit specific towards, if people think about big companies like Google and others that are very software everything and software from the beginning to the end mostly. In the telco world, until a couple of years back, most services were provided via appliances.
Yeah.
So essentially every 10th building in London, for example, would have been a BT building. And you had this real estate where it put in one box after the next.
Okay.
Provides voice connectivity, IP connectivity, all of these services. And it would all be specific appliances from Cisco, from Ericsson, from Nokia, from Huawei, and so forth. So you would have all of this real estate, and it's all dedicated machines. A lot of black boxes, essentially, because they're all managed by third parties.
Yeah.
So over the last couple of years, this has changed quite dramatically. So we moved to a world where most of our services are now software defined, software first or software only as well. This also means that we can virtualize the underlying platform more, and then transition over there. So to answer your question about credentials and passwords, then is really, in the beginning, we didn't know anything about those because they are managed by third parties. So essentially they were hidden in the appliances, and some people were given a password or passphrase or a credential, something like this, to connect with those.
Yeah.
The other problem is, and this is really a lesson learned, is that at the time, because it's operationally much easier or simpler, they would only give you a single password that operates on all of these appliances. Yes, you need to keep it secret, but if you have it, you can connect to all of those. And this is obviously problematic. This means if this gets leaked or shared or something like this, then game over, essentially.
Yeah.
So this evolved. So we moved from a world where you had all of these master passwords, if you want, to a world where you have a dedicated password for a dedicated host, a service, or something like this, much more fine-grained.
Yeah.
And then there are two aspects that I really want to mention. The first one is it's about storytelling. And most people forget that you need to take your teams with you. Not everybody wants to think all about security all the time.
Yeah.
But they need to understand that security is important and that it's really for everybody to action security.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have, for example, a very good red team. So the red team is performing internal attacks in a benign way, but they use the best technologies that are available, really modern techniques like a big threat actor or even a nation state potentially would do. Different scenarios, sometimes assume compromise and stuff like this in order to really show you what happened. And they're really good at storytelling. And these frontline stories are really important.
Interesting.
And the second part is, since you've got all of this legacy, the other part is once you start getting into more software-defined services, you can use tools that give you visibility on all of the secrets and credentials that are being used.
Yeah.
And it's, again, a very powerful element of storytelling. It's very scary because you suddenly see tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe credentials in your estate. All of these GitHub and GitLab repos, software left and right, containers provided by third parties, and so on and so forth. And it's really scary a moment.
Yeah.
But then you think about, hey, okay, how can we improve this? And this is where you come back to security engineering, where you look into, hey, okay, how can we rotate those secrets? How can we make sure that we replace the supplier-provided secrets with our own? How can you move this into a state that you run?
Yeah.
There's also HSMs and hardware security that you want to leverage in some areas in order to just take away all of the angles of it could leak. No, you don't want to have a password that you actually need to enter. You want to operate on a cryptographic secret, but you don't want to ever expose it.
Yeah.
Secure enclaves, HSM, stuff like this are key for us as well.
Yeah. And what role, to your point, because as you mentioned that, I'm already thinking that you have IoT devices as well. You have, so those have passwords. Then you have the actual users, the machine users, the complexity is just too intense. What's a good starting point? Because it may come across quite overwhelming task to start something like that. What was your thinking in terms of, hey, what's a good place to start for most people who, now that you've done this for some time, what's a good place to start this standardization process for secret management?
There's no surprise here. So the answer here needs to be threat modeling. So you need to understand what is your attack surface, what is your threat landscape. And then from there, you look into different services and you start maybe at a macro level on, hey, this is the mobile network. Or the broadband, fixed broadband, something like this.
Yeah.
Then you look into, okay, let's break this down into components. So this is the mobile antenna or a mobile tower, if you want. What is the attack surface of this and the threat vectors and what are the threats and what can I do about those? And they are very different from, for example, our mobile core, which is the brain, if you want, of the mobile network, which is completely virtualized and sits somewhere that BT really owns it. The real estate is owned by BT, so we have capacity of protecting this as well. The mobile antennas are out there. Everybody can walk up to them, rip open the casing and try to plug in a device, for example. So the threat model is very different. So it's really starting with threat modeling, understanding what are the real world threats. And then the other part is that we have, and most bigger companies have, and independent of the industry, is regulation. So we have regulatory requirements where we need to protect certain parts of the business in specific ways. We need to be able to show upon an audit or inspection or something like this that we have applied best practices, that we put in place modern technology, modern ways of working potentially as well. And we are being regulated by a number of different regulators. Ofcom is the biggest one in the UK.
Yeah.
And they also talk about the Telecom Security Act, which is impactful for telcos in the UK.
Yeah.
And where we need to closely collaborate with our suppliers as well.
And how has this changed now that you've standardized this? What's the upside of this? Obviously, like this, basically selling the dream, for lack of a better word. Where are you today and how does it work for secret management and sharing secrets and stuff?
Yeah, I would say we haven't won the war yet. Okay. Certainly, it's still a series of battles there, but the teams all across the business start understanding or really understand now that this model of where you outline the story and the threats, and you have design patterns, templates, architectural guardrails and stuff like this that can be easily applied, and where there are existing solutions and best practices readily available, is a game changer for them. It reduces their cognitive load. They don't have to think about security all the time. They know that, hey, I've got these risks. I can map those to existing solutions that we have already implemented in other parts. So I reuse something that we have. And being part of a big company means that we also have lots of areas where we can readily plug in. I do not need to care about secure enclaves anymore. We have solved this. There is an API. You can hook up to this API. Might be Vault, bag, HSMs, combination thereof. So we've got all of these repeatable patterns. And so this is getting easier, and people start appreciating moving towards a simpler world, reduction of cognitive load. And if you know Dan Pink, TED Talks and YouTube personality, he talks in his book Drive about intrinsic motivation, motivation 3.0. You don't have to hunt for the food anymore, which is your previous motivation. It's really about you want to do something because it's the right thing, you understand it.
That's right.
And so my objective and the company's objective is really to get to this intrinsic motivation where everybody wants to do the right thing automatically and on their own motivation.
That's a great way to look at security. I wish more people were talking about this. So I'm glad we are having this conversation. That's kind of like most of the technical things that I have. Got 3 fun questions for you as well. First one being, when you're not trying to solve secret management or removing secrets as a challenge, what's your favorite activity to do?
At work or outside of work?
Yeah, I work or outside as well.
I'm a keen cyclist.
Oh, nice.
So I like going out in the countryside quite a bit.
Oh, to the France?
No, not at all. I've got a gravel bike, which allows me to do the right thing, the right mix between road and off-road. Way. And I find this really nice. And I like to spend time out and thinking in nature, stuff like this. I also cycle to work, which through London can sometimes be a bit of a challenge, but it's getting better. And so this is really something that I enjoy quite a bit. I've got also a family, obviously, that I look after. So we are quite active.
And maybe related as well, what is something that you're proud of that is not on your social media?
I'm fairly proud of the fact that I have always created innovation where I was. So I have a good amount of patents from previous companies as well. And I have been driving innovation and been part of innovative cycles in all of the companies that I participated in. And it's tricky for me to express this really in a way on LinkedIn very easily. But it's something that I really like. I like to learn new stuff and really think about creative, novel ways of addressing a problem. And, so I'm fairly proud of this.
Have you figured that out for AI yet?
So we use AI across the business increasingly. We have internally built up infrastructure to use it safely as well. And mostly around inference, starting to refine models and retrain some of them as well. So certainly we sprinkle in AI where it makes sense. And for us, for example, it also helps for me as a security person. I have a certain jargon. I use acronyms and stuff like this, which for my sins, I shouldn't do too much. But so the AI helps the lay person to interact with security and talk plain English, French, German, Italian.
And not be overwhelmed.
Whatever, exactly, not being overwhelmed. And it also helps with accelerating some of the tasks where we previously had to go through a register of what is available services, what are the patterns that exist, stuff like this. We can look into matching those with AI as well and get proposals and say, hey, this looks good. And it's all driven on you need to trust it to some degree. And so you need to also validate it. So you need to find this right loop in there. But yes, it's certainly something that can accelerate workflows quite a bit on security lifecycle.
Well, I look forward to getting the innovation there as well that you guys make. Final question, what is your favorite cuisine or restaurant that you can share?
So my wife's French. Okay. So I'm a big fan of French cuisine in general. I'm not sure if I've got a particular favorite food or something like this, but I like cooking as well. And we do quite some sophisticated foods from time to time.
Wow.
And that, somewhat as an outlier, I'm also a big fan of Ethiopian cuisine.
Oh yeah, injera bread and all of that as well.
Exactly, and there's especially the vegetarian options are really good. So we love doing this and regularly go to Ethiopian restaurants in order to have a really good meal, be shared with friends and stuff like this, and amazing coffee. Afterwards, they have a nice coffee ceremony and all of this stuff, and it's the best coffee there is.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. I'll need to check that out. But where can people find you to connect with you? Maybe talk more about what you're doing with secret management and other things in BT. Or where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah. So on LinkedIn, it's probably my most social. I'm also on Strava for the fitness guys. You can see exactly. It's LinkedIn. So CH Schwarz, or just search me up as Security Director for Network Services at BT Group.
I will put that in. But thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks everyone tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening and watching this episode of Cloud Security Podcast. If you've been enjoying content like this, you can find more episodes like these on www.cloudsecuritypodcast.tv. We are also publishing these episodes on social media as well, so you can definitely find these episodes there. Oh, by the way, just in case there was interest in learning about AI cybersecurity, we also have a sister podcast called AI Cybersecurity Podcast, which may be of interest as well. I'll leave the links in the description for you to check them out. And also for our weekly newsletter, where we do in-depth analysis of different topics within cloud security, ranging from identity, endpoint, all the way up to what is the CNAP or whatever a new acronym that comes out tomorrow. Thank you so much for supporting, listening, and watching. I'll see you next time.